It's 8:52 here in New York. I'm Bryant Gumbel. We understand that there has been a plane crash on the southern tip of Manhattan. You're looking at the World Trade Center. We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center. We don't know anything more than that.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! What? Oh God!
My name is Gregory C. Maglino Jr., and I'm the chief of the department for the South Country Ambulance Company. And this is my story based on my experience on 9/11. We are a small ambulance company in comparison to the FDNY, located halfway out on Long Island, about 60 miles east of New York City on the South Shore. We service a population of approximately 45,000 residents and handle on average 4,000 calls a year. On the morning of 9/11, we went from a small town agency to one in support of the largest city in the United States. That morning, I had left my house as I normally did and stopped at the Royal Oak for breakfast. There I met up with a group of friends who I normally eat breakfast with. While we were sitting down eating breakfast, the manager of the facility walked over to us and said, "You're not going to believe this, but a plane just hit one of the World Trade Center towers." None of us assumed it was a large passenger jet. We assumed that it was a small plane, possibly a Piper size or a Cessna. About 15, 20 minutes later, approximately, the manager came back and said a second plane just hit the second tower. And when that happened, without saying a word, all the people that were sitting at the table got up and immediately started making their way out. At that time, I arrived at the headquarters and began formulating a plan to see what we were going to do and to see whether or not we'd be able to support that mission. Within about 20 minutes, the building had filled up with all of our members and even local citizens that had come down to ask how they could help. They wanted to help in any way they could, and at that time there really wasn't a role for them, or actually wasn't even a role for all of our members. There were so many that showed up. But I decided at that point that we would go into the city, we would take one of our first responder vehicles, which is a Tahoe, and one ambulance, and that I would staff those vehicles only with unmarried people and those that had no children. We ended up getting on the West Side Highway and we were driving south, and we were trying to find a place that we'd be able to park and we could see the smoke billowing from the moment that we started heading south. And as we started walking down, we didn't make it maybe 100 feet, somebody came running up to us and said, "Hey, are you guys paramedics?" And we said, "Yes." They said, "Our lieutenant's having a heart attack." And with that, an emergency services lieutenant from the NYPD was brought over to us. And we immediately started to treat him, and we were trying to figure out how we were going to transport him when another police officer approached us and said that they had set up a landing area at the school's field. There was a field that is along the Hudson there. So we brought that lieutenant over to the helicopter, and he was loaded and airlifted immediately over to New Jersey and treated over there. We then took that stretcher and started walking south towards where the towers had collapsed. As we continued down and I finally made it to Vesey Street, I encountered a kid I worked with when I worked for King Cullen as a kid. His name was Keith Roth. He was an NYPD police officer, and he was there. So I briefly spoke with him, and then I made a left, and there was another one of our members who was in the FDNY, staged with other firemen. They were staging, waiting to be called in for something. So we walked past, we exchanged some words real quick, and that's when we found the Presbyterian ambulance. The Presbyterian ambulance was covered with debris, but the operator had done exactly what you're supposed to do at an MCI, which is he left the keys in the ignition. We later found out, many of us that responded in, that we had friends that died. Okay, another Marine like myself from Mastic, who was a gentleman I knew, who was married to a friend of mine, Kevin Smith, he died. A gentleman I served with in the volunteer fire department here in Brookhaven, Lincoln Quape, he died. friend of mine, Billy Mahoney, who I had taught with and met through a mutual friend who also responded in with us, Bob Fink. He ended up dying. A lot of really good people that we knew, kind of like the best of the best, all seemed to die unexpectedly. And I say unexpectedly because they're not the kind of people that you ever think are going to die, because they're just so good at what they do. And on that day, the best of the best ended up dying. And that was a little bit of a shock. One of the questions people ask sometimes are, are you scared? Were you terrified? The answer is no. Okay, we were alert. I was confident in my skills. I was confident in the equipment we were bringing. I was confident in the people I was with. And a lot of times when you're involved in the rescue business, when you're doing the action itself, you really don't think about the consequences. I could die, I could be hurt. You're focused on trying to save people. So from my point of view, no, I wasn't scared at any time. I was focused, and I didn't see anybody that was there that had any outward signs of being scared. I saw thousands and thousands of rescuers who were focused, and people that came together from all walks of life to do anything and everything they could to help a fellow U.S. citizen that was hurt. So that was my experience as it came to that. And as I look back at it now, it was actually a very positive and uplifting moment for me that was born out of tragedy, because I saw the best of America at the worst of times. And it hadn't been the first time I'd seen that. But as I looked around, it wasn't about me, it was about we. Everybody wanted to help. It didn't matter who they were, from old to young, women, men, people that were civilians, people that were uniformed services. And as this rolled on, and we watched it over a period of time roll out, you saw people come from all over the United States to do stuff. Some brought trucks just so they could serve food to people. Other fire departments sent their people. There were international teams that showed up. We ended up supporting the Port Authority Police by giving them one of our vehicles to use to replace one of theirs that had been crushed during the tower collapse. So when I look back at it, if you could remove the horrific event, the terrible tragedy, and the hatred that you have for the people that would perpetrate this on our country, there was a lot of good that came to shine afterwards. And sometimes you have to wrap yourself in the good so that the bad doesn't take you down.